You know, sometimes the most epic stories aren't about huge battles, but about the battles inside a single human heart. This is one of those. It's the story of a king's rage and his son's enlightenment. It's a really personal look at a father who thinks he's lost everything, only to find himself face to face with a reality that's bigger than any kingdom. Okay, let's dive into this.
So let's set the scene. We're in the kingdom of Kapilavastu, and King Suddhodana, the father of the man who would become the Buddha, is not having a good day. Actually, he's consumed by this storm of anger and loss. From his point of view, everything he planned for his family, for his kingdom, it's all been completely destroyed by his son's choices.
And look, this isn't just a father being disappointed. This is a deep cultural wound. For a king back then, your lineage, that was everything. So when he says this, you can just feel the despair. He doesn't see his son's spiritual quest as noble. To him, it's a total failure of duty, an act that has just wiped out the family's legacy and their future.
So what did the king think was lost exactly? Well, it was this incredible prophecy. His son was meant to be a wheel king, a universal monarch. I mean, think about it. A ruler so powerful he'd unite the world, not with an army, but just by being righteous. He'd have these magical 7 treasures, father 1,000 heroic sons, this whole magnificent worldly destiny just gone.
The king's anger got so bad it led to this absolutely staggering command. He literally ordered that any of his own people who even tried to go listen to his son would be executed. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. This was the king trying to use his power to just erase his son's existence from the world.
All right, so now let's flip the script and see things from the Buddha's perspective. He isn't just off meditating, unaware of all this. No, he feels his father's pain deeply, and he knows that to fix this, to get through that wall of anger, he can't just send anyone. He needs exactly the right person for the job.
He thinks about his top disciples. But Mahakāshyapa, well, he was known for being really strict and austere, probably a little too intimidating. And Shariputra, the wisest, might have come off as too preachy. The king didn't need a lecture, he needed a friend. And that's why the choice fell to Kalodaya. He was the one disciple who had also been the prince's childhood buddy. He was the only one who could talk to the father, not just the king.
So Kalodaya doesn't just, walk up and knock on the door. He makes an entrance that is absolutely impossible to ignore. He uses his powers to just float up high above the palace, sitting there peacefully in midair. Can you imagine seeing that? This incredible sight just shatters the king's angry defenses. What can you do when you see something like that? You have no choice but to get up, show some respect, and finally, listen.
And what happens next is this incredible conversation. The king is still seeing everything through the eyes of a king. He's worried about comfort, power, and what his son has lost. He starts asking these questions, and with every answer, Kalodaya just flips the script. He redefines what it means to be rich, to be happy, to be powerful. It's a total clash of 2 worldviews.
So the king starts with the basics, comfort. He's thinking, my son used to have the best bed in the world. How can he sleep on the hard ground? But Kalodaya comes back with this idea that true comfort, it's internal. The Buddha sleeps on a sacred bed, where his blanket is kindness and his pillow is compassion. It's a completely different way of thinking.
Next, the king thinks about all the palace entertainment, the music, the parties. He's picturing his son all alone and miserable in the woods. But the reply is so profound. The Buddha's entertainment is the joy that comes from deep meditation. It's a happiness that doesn't depend on anything outside of himself, and it never goes away.
Then the king remembers his son's amazing clothes, all the gold and pearls. What could he possibly wear now, he wonders. And Kalodaya paints this picture of a different kind of beauty. The Buddha's clothes, they're his virtues. His perfume, that's his morality. These are decorations of character, and they never, ever fade.
Finally, the king's fatherly concern comes out. He's worried about his son's safety. He's thinking about guards, swords, spears. But Kalodaya reveals a totally different kind of armor. One made of loving kindness, compassion, and patience. And really, what army on earth could ever break through a defense like that?
So you can see how Kalodaya's words are starting to chip away at the king's resentment. He's planted these seeds of doubt, but the real turning point, the thing that finally unlocks the king's heart, has to come from inside the king himself. And this is that moment. The king is looking at Kalodaya, this man who can fly, who speaks with such incredible wisdom,
and a thought hits him. If this is just the student, what in the world must the teacher be like? The sheer power of the messenger forces the king to completely reevaluate who his son has become.
And then, it's like a dam breaks. All these memories come flooding back. The earth shaking when his son was born, the way he took 7 steps all on his own, the 2 streams of water that came from the sky to bathe him. And then he remembers the most important thing of all, the vow his infant son made, that once he reached enlightenment, he would come back to guide him.
Suddenly, it all just clicks into place for the king. The logic is just undeniable. He thinks about his son's entire life, how he never lied, how he always had this incredible integrity, and he realizes, a person like that, someone so extraordinary from the moment of his birth, well, how could you not believe in him? In that single moment, all his doubt just dissolves.
And with that realization, everything changes. Just like that. The anger is gone, replaced by this sense of complete awe. He announces his new plan, but listen to how he says it. He doesn't call him my son anymore. He uses the respectful title Moony King, the Sage King. He knows he has to go see him in person.
His last words to Kalo Dayan really show you how total this transformation is. He calls the messenger the son of my son. It's a term of incredible respect and affection. And then he does this simple, fatherly thing. He offers food and asks him to please take some to the Buddha. His anger has completely turned into active, loving care.
And you know, this wasn't just the end of the king's anger. It was the beginning of his own path. It was in that very moment, we're told, that he achieved correct faith. That's the very first and most crucial step toward his own enlightenment.
So this whole story leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? The king thought his son had thrown away the greatest inheritance imaginable, an entire empire. But in the end, his son offered him something completely different. It really makes you ask yourself, what's the true measure of a legacy? What is the greater inheritance?